Is the Guardian Tactical Scout the best OTF EDC on the market today? We're going to attempt to answer that question in this video. We're taking a look at this little beauty here that I think is a little bit of a hidden gem. I don't hear that many people talking about this knife. They're readily available. You can pick them up brand new on the secondary market. There's a little bit of buzz about some of the features, but nobody's really touting this knife the way that I think they should. Now, that comes with some caveats. I don't think I'm going to become the biggest Guardian Tactical fan in the world, but I do want to talk about this knife because it's really, really cool. So first off, this isn't an unboxing. I've had this knife for a little while. I think I've done maybe a couple shorts or some pictures or something. I don't know what I've published and haven't published. Comes in a pretty standard box, nice graphics. It's fine, very reasonable. This kind of packaging is always kind of nice because it presents well, but it's not something where I'm going to say they should have put the presentation money into the knife. Here is the packaging. It looks like it's developed maybe to dual purpose with other things. I don't know what these slots would be for, but has some nice foam in there. Very clear that this is a sharp knife. Warranty information, and that's about it. So on to this guy actually, let's leave this out. On to this guy right here. So what is this? This is Guardian Tactical's answer to the Microtech Ultra Tech, basically. And this also somewhat replaces the Recon. That's what they're called, right? The Recon 35. So they have three sizes of their Recon flagship OTF model. I have the 040, which is the largest, and it's a beast. It's the biggest OTF in terms of length that I've ever owned, I believe. Actually, maybe that's not true. The Cleric 2 may be longer. I take that back. But it is a big, heavy, stout knife. And then the 035 is the medium-sized version of their main OTF line, and that's what this kind of competes in. But this one does a lot of things better. It is sleeker, it's lighter, and in my opinion, looks better. So first off, let's talk design. OTF, as I mentioned, small, sleek, lightweight. Let's go ahead and get some sizing. I was going to do specs later just because they're so readily available everywhere you look, but to prove my point and to really talk about this, we need to kind of do that. So 3.5-inch blade, almost 8 inches, just under 8 inches overall length. The biggest thing that this knife is doing well from a practical, carryable standpoint is the weight. 3.2 ounces, super, super light for a knife this size. The reason for that, there's the obvious aluminum chassis that this thing sports. OTFs in general are always quite light for the size of blade that they offer. But this one, obviously in particular, has inlays of carbon fiber. There's a lot of material being removed here. I almost said it is milled. I don't believe it's milled. So my guess is you can see how there's a little bit of a lip there. I believe that this is probably a cast frame, and this pocket is just cast into the aluminum, and then they put the inlays inside there. I think that's how Microtech does most of their production that has inlays like the SOCOM Elite and the Scarab 2 that have the grip tape inlays. Probably done the same way. You can see that carbon fiber is just zinging right there. You've got some design features, some kind of lines put in there. Looks really good. Nice, subtle, effective, simplistic. Titanium pocket clip. It is milled titanium. Unfortunately, it's not reversible, so for you lefties, you're kind of out of luck. Then it's got stainless steel glass breakers on the back here, which is interesting. Usually you go with ceramic for glass breakers. They work much, much better. These are stainless steel, and there's 3 of them. But the good news is, if you don't like glass breakers, like a lot of OTFs have, this one's super comfortable. It's not pokey. It's not going to hit your thumb in reverse grip. It's not going to get in the way. It's very subtle. Now, is it effective as a glass breaker? That I don't know. I cannot answer that question. So if it is effective as a glass breaker, then it's a total win because it's not obtrusive and it works. But if it's not effective, then what a waste. double action OTF. They've got the patented proprietary system here where they put a steel insert underneath the slider, as you can see right there. And then they've got ball bearings underneath the trigger here so that it creates a very smooth and easy to deploy action. Now, what I will say, the only negative I would say with this switch is the jimping on here is a little soft. There's been times where my hands have been a little sweaty. You know, I'm a little excited with a knife, and I don't quite slip off, but it doesn't feel as secure as most OTFs. There's not a ton of grip there. Now, in the open position, they've got this nice little ledge, so it's not as much of an issue. When you go to close it, you almost want to slide off of the button there. So if I could have my way, I would make that a little bit more aggressive, just all around. Just make it more aggressive. You can see how rounded it is. But in terms of the smoothness of the action, super smooth, as well as the ball bearings kind of reduce some of the kind of wiggle that you'll get on a lot of OTFs. A little bit tighter. I'm not saying it's tight as a drum and that there's no play or anything going on there, but not as much as most. The blade, LMAX steel, which Guardian Tactical uses a lot. You got beautiful blade, nice Bowie or Bowie style, whatever you want to say. Swedge on top that is not sharpened. Really, really cool stylings. There's this notch up there. Like there's details that just work, that aren't obnoxious. They don't look like they were just thrown in there just because, even though technically they're non-functional. Like this fuller here looks really, really cool. Doesn't serve a purpose other than, you could say, reducing some weight on the blade, but that's about it. You've got some jimping up here. Not very aggressive. Mainly it's more of a thumb cue so that you know your thumb's in the right space for kind of bearing down and cutting, but it's not really going to do much in terms of slipping off. Speaking of which, this style of blade is very utilitarian for an OTF. You can put your thumb on the back here to make sure it's nice and secure. Put a little counter pressure on it as you're cutting through material. Works very, very effectively. Hollow ground blade, not very deep, very light hollow ground blade. Reasonably thin behind the edge. Definitely not a top tier slicer, but it's not a brick either. You can see the angle of the secondary bevel is laid back quite a bit. Very, very sharp out of the box. You can see some of the milling lines on the primary bevel from when it was manufactured, and then they put a nice acid stonewash over the top there. Looks really, really good. Aside from the action just being smooth with the button, it also just, I don't know, the internals are tuned really, really well. Just very clean. The action is top-notch, and Guardian Tactical has been known for that. Guardian Tactical does really good OTFs. Now, cost. This is subjective, right? But in the OTF world, this is a steal. MSRP, these are around $400, and I know some people are going to say that's insane. But for an LMAX steel made in the US OTF with carbon fiber inlays, titanium pocket clip, that's a steal. If you got these same features in a Microtech, it would be the signature line, and it would probably cost $1,000. So compared to other OTF offerings, it's a steal. Secondary market, you're looking at about $300, which is where I got mine. Really good deal for such a high quality OTF. Quality, top notch. Everything's good. Bladeplay, it's there. It's an OTF. It's not a deadlock. Deadlock is just about the only one where you're not going to get Bladeplay. There's the SOG Pentagon, but we're not going to count that because it has issues. A little bit of Bladeplay, but it's definitely on the minimum side of OTFs, right? It's some of the best minimal Bladeplay out of the ones I've featured. The mechanism inside is your standard carriage system that Microtech has popularized over decades and decades. So it has all those features. You can see how it's got, you can pull it out because it's the tension of the spring that's pulling it down and kind of keeping the blade stable. Same mechanism inside. Now they may have tweaked it. I don't know if it's running a single spring or double spring. I haven't taken it apart, but using the typical carriage spring system with the two gates. I would like to take this apart and take a look at how big the locking gates are and things like that. So that may be on the future. Maybe compare it to an Ultratech would be kind of cool. The anodization on the handle has been a point of contention for some people. Is it purple? Is it gray? It's listed as gray. It definitely has a purple hue to it, which I love. I love purple. I love blue. And it's kind of subtle. It's not a in-your-face purple. So here's a comparison to a Spyderco in what they used to call blurple, but I would say it's a pretty decently strong purple there. It's definitely a more grayish tone of that. So I think it's awesome. I think it's beautiful. But that's subjective. It's up to you. In terms of blade styles, this is the only production blade shape that they have. They did do a custom line that I think was hand ground by Reese Wayland. That's a compound grind blade. But in terms of production, this is all you get. But they do come in different finishes as well as partial serrations. You can get, I forget. I think this is actually called stonewash, even though it's actually kind of more of an acid wash stonewash. Let's see if it says on here. Yeah, so this is called stonewash. And then they've got a dark wash, which is an even darker acid wash with stonewashing on it. And then I'm not sure. I don't think they have satin or anything like that. And then I think they've got a black painted type blade that they offer. So not a ton of options, but this blade shape is just killer. We already did specs. So what's the downside to this? I mean, there really isn't one. As an OTF knife, this thing is killer. I mean, I couldn't recommend it more. If you're in the market for something in this price range that's top quality, lightweight, easy to carry, good size without being cumbersome, absolute banger right here. Pick one up. However, Guardian Tactical as a brand, they just have limited offerings. They don't have a lot of models. They don't have a lot of variants. So it just doesn't have, like, for me, I'm very collector oriented. I love how Microtech does their signature series. There's all these different variants, all these different models, all these different rare versions and production versions and all these things. I love that a lot. And you're not going to get that in Guardian Tactical. They've only got a few models and not a lot of variants of each one. But like I said, if you're just looking for an excellent top quality OTF with super smooth action, I couldn't recommend the Guardian Tactical Scout anymore. There's nothing that bugs me on this knife. It's executed very, very well. So high scores. Pick one up if you're interested. Let me know. What do you think of this down below? Leave comments, like, subscribe, all that. Talk to you guys later.